People, welcome to Newspaper Breakdown. It is the 10th of the 2nd. I hope we are all fine. A number of stories to get through today, some interesting ones out there. We'll start with MPs and their pay rises. MPs get a 2.9% increase from the 1st of April, taking their overall pay from £84,144 to £86,584. This comes, of course, during mass industrial disputes over pay. Ministers continue to say that they can't afford to pay people. MP salaries are decided by the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority, which has a legal duty to set pay independently of Parliament and the government. So MPs will continually say to you, hey, it wasn't our choice, not on us, it's on them. The IPSA says the annual adjustment to MPs' basic salaries for 23-24 will be the same as the average increase in pay for public sector employees last year. The 2.9% increase is important to remember that because we have inflation at around 10%, that although they're getting an increase, in real terms, it is a loss. The average pay growth for private sector was 6.9% in August to October 2022, and 2.7% for the public sector according to ONS figures. Last year, nurses were offered a £1,400 pay award, an increase of more than 5% for the average nurse. But many public sector workers are demanding a pay rise in line or above inflation, which is currently at 10.5%. So MPs at this point would be able to argue, well, we've only got a pay rise of 2.9%. If we're willing to accept that, why aren't you? Then you could argue the severe difference between £80,000 and £30,000. There's lots of ifs, buts, and thought that has to go into it. It's not just as simple as, oh, those bastards get a pay rise again. Although, of course, those bastards get a pay rise again. The Royal College of Nursing is currently demanding 5% above inflation, claiming that its members have had a real-term pay cut of 20% since 2010. Austerity again. Austerity. On the striking, while we're talking about pay, firefighters have called off their strikes for now after an offer of 7% increase backdated to July 2022 and a 5% rise from July the 1st going forward. Now, what the nurses were talking about, since 2010, pay for an experienced frontline nurse has risen by £5,400. MP's pay has gone up by £20,846 in the same period. So at that point, there really isn't an argument to be made. MPs continue, it doesn't matter what's happening in the world. It does not matter what is happening in the country. The entire country could be in poverty. MPs will still get a pay rise. And it doesn't seem fair, does it? Because it's not. Anyway, Justice Secretary and Deputy PM Dominic Raab, a man with the eyes of a weekend dad, has again denied allegations of bullying, with the allegations now being, of course, a subject to an inquiry. He claimed instead that he just has high standards, which is very, very iffy. So I think you'll find I'm not bullying, I just have high standards. It's a lot like saying, listen, I know you're saying no, but I still think I should be allowed to touch you. It's trying to make yourself seem like the hero and the victim is just not good enough. Right? Oh, if you were better, then I would be treating you better, you know. It's dodgy. Now we've got news over in Belarus and Poland. Belarus has slammed the decision by Poland to close the border checkpoint between the two nations as catastrophic, saying it could lead to a collapse on both sides of the border. Poland have said that it would close the key border in Belarus on the 10th of February over security concerns. This is during an already hostile relations between the two nations. It's making it even worse now. Poland has become a key refuge for opponents of the president of Belarus, Lukashenko, and has become one of the staunchest supporters of Ukraine since the Russian invasion. Russia is one of Belarus's frankly only allies. After the closure of this border, there was only 2 of the 6 major land crossing points along the border that will be open. On Wednesday, a journalist of Polish origin was jailed for 8 years by a Belarusian court in a trial that Poland has claimed was politically motivated. So one of the many things to keep an eye on, as with a lot of news stories. If it's global, it tends to have more effect than just the first thing you see, the headline. So if you have a look at the war, the invasion of Ukraine, you also see how it is affecting Belarus and how it's affecting Poland, and you see the likes of Finland and Sweden wanting to get into NATO, and you see all of the dominoes moving at that point. Speaking of the EU, right-wing populist and Italian Prime Minister Meloni has criticised France and Germany after not being invited to a dinner in Paris with Ukrainian President Zelensky. This is adding further friction in the EU between what is seen as the 3 major players: Germany, your France, your Italy. Last year, the Italian PM Draghi was invited. He worked hand in hand with Macron and Scholz on Ukraine. Now Meloni is being left out. To her credit, Meloni has pledged to maintain the same pro-Ukrainian stance as Draghi, despite her misgivings of other EU members. She is a Eurosceptic. She doesn't like the EU. Whether or not that will move for them to Italy to attempt to leave the EU, only time will tell. Frankly, if you've seen what's happened to the UK and you think, I'll tell you what's a good idea, leaving the EU, then you're a fucking idiot. Last week, Italy and France finalised technical talks for a joint delivery of an air defence system to Ukraine in the spring of this year. However, her brand of nationalist politics has put her at odds with both both Macron and Scholz over many issues, and the close ties that you saw last year between Italy, France and Germany are pretty much in the past now, until we potentially have a new MP, a new PM in Italy. But I mean, that could be next week. You see how quickly it changes over in Italy. It's nearly as bad as Britain last year. So back to the UK now, in what is unfortunately the best news that we could have hoped for. The UK economy stagnated in the final quarter of 2022, which means that we have narrowly missed falling into a recession. Skin of our teeth. Like, we were shit, we were fucking dreadful, we didn't do anything of use, but at least we didn't fall into a recession. That is despite output shrinking more than expected in December. GDP was unchanged between the third and the fourth quarters in 2022, according to ONS figures. The quarterly figures was boosted by growth in October and November. However, the economy shrunk by 0.5% between November and December, with widespread strikes, cost of living hitting household finances and business activities. In the fourth quarter of the UK recovery, the UK economy was still 0.8% below the levels of the same period in 2019, which was pre-pandemic. The US economy was up 5.1% over the same period, and the Eurozone grew 0.4%. Every other fucking major country is up to where their pre-pandemic levels were. They're above where their pre-pandemic levels were. We are not. You can think of 1,000 reasons as to it. Austerity and Brexit and the fact that we've got a Tory party. They're the reasons. They're the reasons. That's it. It's not because people are lazy. It's not because money is fucking is against the country. It's not because we were cursed. It is because we are run, and we have in this country a selection of the stupidest, most useless piles of human waste, be it both in power and people who are allowed to fucking vote. That's the reason. That is the absolute reason why we are. And we're not even where we were at like 2008. We have had such a length of missed growth. It is remarkable. We're never going to catch up, really, unless there is fundamental change. And one of the changes has to be bitch slapping some fucking people. The Bank of England expects the UK economy to contract this year and the first quarter of next year, so we still may get our recession. Whoop whoop. According to their calculations, output will not recover to pre-pandemic levels until 2026. So that will be 7 years of lost growth. And you can't even blame everything they're going to blame, because all the other fucking countries are fine and they all had coronavirus. Every single fucking one of them did. It didn't hide. It didn't just say coronavirus wasn't there going, mate, you know who I'm going to get? The fucking British. It didn't do that, did it? Every country is doing better than our country. And, I mean, we've got, you want to go, oh, well, it's because most of our stuff is in finance. Well, that's like 10% of the economy. What about the other 90%? You want to continue going how we need to be a manufacturing nation? No, we need to be a STEM nation, a service nation, what we're good at, all of that. Science and all of this fucking shit. That's what we need. You want to still go down the fucking pit because you think that there's some beautiful dream of it, where in fact all you're doing is going down a pit and dying. Fucking people in this country, backward shits. For the fourth successive by-election in a row, Labour have defeated the Tories. The by-election was held in West Lancashire, it was won quite convincingly by Labour, who grew their majority over the seat. The by-election was triggered after Rosie Cooper resigned from Parliament to become the chair of the Mersey Care NHS Foundation Trust. Labour's Ashley Dalton, she went on to win by receiving 62.3% of the vote, which is up by 10.2% from 2019. The Tory candidate got 25.4% of the votes, a fall of 10.9%. Turnout was well down, massively down. Down to 31% turnout for a by-election vote is fucking nothing. It is down from 72% that was the turnout during the general election. The result, of course, is another win for Starmer up against the Tories. There are multitude of problems with Starmer. He seems to enjoy siding with the Tories at points where he shouldn't. He's ignoring Brexit completely. He doesn't seem fun, which isn't actually a problem. That's a problem for everyone. Oh my God, he's so boring. He's so boring. Well, bring back Boris Johnson, see how much you like that. Fucking, you want to go out for a drink with some with a fucking MP. Madness. Yeah, it's looking good for Labour. It can all change. Of course it can. Starmer isn't perfect. We shouldn't expect perfection from our leaders because they're human beings. And at the moment, we just have to get rid of the Tories. That's it. Although, I mean, you vote for who you want to. You vote for absolutely who you want to. If you want to all move to Islington so you can individually vote for Jeremy Corbyn, you do that. If you want to vote for fucking UKIP, do that. If you want to vote for the Tories, do that. But you have to. There has to be something inside of yourself to be able to stand up for your own beliefs. Because if you say, well, I can't vote for Starmer, that's fine. But why? And who did you vote for before? Because if you vote for Corbyn and you can't vote for Starmer, then your opinions on certain things, I think, are all over the place. Oh, well, Starmer stands with the Tories on things and he shouldn't. Yeah. Corbyn was standing with the Tories for Brexit. And that's much worse. Straight after the Brexit vote, Corbyn was the first one out saying we need to enact Article 50. But none of you are there, none of you tedious balls of supporters were there condemning Corbyn for that, because you're in a cult and you're blind. Anyway, that's enough. It's enough on him. Finally, this is the final story. This is a letter signed by the Human Rights Watch, Reprieve, and the Bahrain Institute for Rights and Democracy a letter signed by the Human Rights Watch, Reprieve, and the Bahrain Institute for Rights and Democracy to the Foreign Secretary James Cleverly has urged him to issue corrections over a misleading report in the Foreign Office's latest Human Rights and Democracy report of 2021, in which it says that Bahrain took positive steps in 2021, which is a stark contrast to the Human Rights Watch report over the same period, which found continuing heavy repression. The Foreign Office report is accused of being fraught with inaccuracies and amounts to disinformation that could be used as propaganda by the Bahrain government. Over the past 10 years, the UK has channeled £13 million to Bahrain through the Gulf Strategy Fund, a fund which has been criticised for lacking transparency and over fears that the money is going to organisations involved in human rights abuses. Bahrain is still rife with torture by security services, and even if you protest in that country, that could lead to a death sentence. The Foreign Office report fails to condemn violations against death row inmates and gives unqualified praise for alternative sentencing, although it has been discriminatory and is not for political prisoners. Last October, the Human Rights Watch and Bird jointly published a report claiming Bahrain security services, supported by the UK, have been accused of serious and persistent human rights abuses. It said that people had been tortured by Bahrain's Interior Ministry and two other bodies receiving UK backing. The Interior Ministry's Special Investigation Unit and Ombudsman both failed to purposefully investigate the allegations, even though they are obliged to do so. The Foreign Office report also praises Bahrain for its restorative justice law for children as a progressive step, but it fails to mention that it does not protect key rights. The new law increases the age of criminal responsibility to 15, good, but it does not prohibit interrogating children without a parent or lawyer present, and allows children to be detained in participating in unlicensed public gatherings. It's the continual story of our country's absolute love of human rights violators because they give us money. That's it. We've sold ourselves, and we sold ourselves ages ago. It's not a surprise anymore. Our MPs, our businesses have all of the morality of drowning a kitten. So that's enough. As always, I don't do shit over the weekend, so enjoy your weekend.